Hey everybody, thank you for joining me once again for another episode of the Tamara Temu Collective, where dreams have no filter. So, in this episode, I want to keep talking about the loop, okay? And if you watched my most recent video, then you know what I'm talking about. So, we have to be, I don't want to say careful, but we have to assess the information that we're taking in. We have to assess the environments that we're putting ourselves in. Is the information that we're intaking, is it propelling us forward? Or is it keeping us in a loop of the things that we don't want? Are the environments that we are a part of, on the surface, they could look helpful, but is it keeping us in a state of mind? Is it keeping us in a certain emotional set or a certain vibration where we are continuously being reminded of what we don't want rather than focusing on our vision, the highest vision that we have for ourselves, the biggest dream that we have that we may not have shared with anybody? Are those environments, is the information us propelling us, getting us out of the loop of what we don't want? Or is it propelling us toward the highest vision? Or is it keeping us in a constant state and vibration of what we don't want? So I'm going to use the same example that I used in the last video about money, because that is something that we can all relate to. So perhaps there is a perceived lack of money that you are experiencing at the moment. And maybe this money lack, has been a recurring issue. Well, are you drawn to videos or posts that scream, these are the reasons why you're fill in the blank, these are the reasons why you're broke, these are the 3 reasons why you're having trouble making more money? Are you constantly being drawn to that type of content? Now, we get that certain titles are used to grab attention, but is it helpful? Is that helping you? Sure, you can get advice from people. Sure, you can get advice from those types of videos and content, but at what point do you say, okay, I am no longer available for any information that tells me that I'm experiencing lack of money in my life, because I'm abundant, and that is what I now identify with. And because I'm abundant, everything that's good is abundant in my life, including money. So I want to talk about that more, the loop. I want to talk about the loop more, but I want to bring in the idea of perseverance and the programming around perseverance. Now, if you are like me and many of us, growing up, even through adulthood, perseverance was equal to struggle. Perseverance was equal to doing things that you don't want to do, being in situations or environments that really did not serve you. Perseverance also was related to how worthy you were or how worthy you are to receive what you desire, to get something that you desire, anything. So I want to talk about that. And so perseverance, first of all, we can cross that out. It does not equate to struggle. We already know that, in this third dimensional plane, in these human bodies, we're spirit first in a body. And so we came here to have this experience as a human being. And we know that every day may not look like perfection, whatever, perfection means to you. However, that does not mean that every day has to be a struggle. I hear people say certain things, certain phrases, and I'm sure you've heard these phrases too. Every day we're fighting. Every day is a fight. Every day you're struggling to get through. Every day you're surviving. That is a loop that we have to get out of. As long as we use those words, and if you've listened to this channel, you know how important, or the importance that I put on words, and I will say this over and over again. The power of our words is something that is very real, and is something that we are being given the opportunity now to tap into that power like never before. Okay? And I believe many of us don't talk about it, or we don't use it because we know that it's there. Our soul knows that it's there. But for whatever reason, the list goes on, and that's not what this video is about. We don't use it. We ignore it or pretend like it's not there. But anyway, we have to get out of that loop of persevering. If you're going to persevere in life, that means that every single day is a fight. Guess what? Every single day, we weren't put here to just survive. We weren't put here for every day to be a fight, for every day to be a struggle. Guess what? Life gets to look like joy. Life gets to look like ease. All the time, not just in spurts, not just for a few months here and there, but life and ease and joy, that gets to be a constant. But because of programming, we have this idea that we have to persevere, that life is about persevering. Well, we know that, again, I'll go back to what I said about being in this body and having this experience. We know that we are going to lose people to death or the body dying, okay? Because To me, death is not the end. That death is the beginning of something else. But to have a person that we love, to have our friends, our loved ones that we can see and touch and hug and embrace in their physical bodies, we know that that existence is temporary and our bodies die. And so it will be sad, okay? It will be emotional. There will be tears. So we know that we have to persevere through that as we continue on with our physical lives, with our 3D lives. We have to persevere through that. But even in that pain, it doesn't have to be struggle. Because eventually, we learn to live and cope with that person that we loved not being in their physical bodies anymore. So going back to the self-worth part of persevering, we're programmed to think that if we are not putting ourselves or allowing ourselves to be in situations that we know are, now before I get into that, let me say this. We already know that there are lessons, and I'm not so sure that I completely agree with the idea that all lessons come through something difficult. I'm not completely sure I agree with that completely. We do know that lessons come through mistakes. We know that lessons come through things that have been hard and things that we have struggled through. But all the lessons don't have to come that way in life, okay? But somewhere down the line, we're taught that if we are not sitting in something that we know is no longer serving us, because here's the thing about that. If we are going through something and let's just say that we're going through something that is difficult, and it did appear as an opportunity for us to learn a lesson. Sometimes we can prolong that hardship because we are telling ourselves, well, I have to stay in this because I have to persevere, when the lesson is over. And we don't need to be in that situation anymore. But because of what we've been programmed about persevering, we prolong the situation, when we were just supposed to get the lesson and move on. But we have prolonged it by what we have allowed ourselves to believe. Instead of telling ourselves, well, okay, yes, I have this lesson. Now, let me get back to this higher vision that I have for myself and make a decision for something higher. Instead of saying that, then we say, oh no, but I have to sit here. I have to struggle through this. I have to persevere. Because we think that if we persevere through something, then we're showing our true strength. Sure, there's strength building that comes through being in environments or situations that are tough, especially when it's always tough when you know that there's something more. It's always tough when you know that what you're in is not aligned with that highest vision. And so now you know you have to make a decision toward the higher vision that you have for yourself. That, to me, that strength is taking the next step toward your vision. So now here is where things can get a little bit tricky. Here is where we have to assess whether or not the people in our lives are keeping us in a loop. Okay? So I just talked about making a decision. So for example, I'll use a job. Maybe you are, or a job, or if you have a business. Well, let's keep it simple. Let's just use a job, okay? And let's just say that, you are in a job where okay, you got the lesson. You recognized it for what it was. But now the growth in that situation is over. You've grown to where you need to go. And now it's time to move forward. And this is not out of a emotional or rash decision, but you know that your intuition is saying, okay, now it's time to move forward. And then you make a decision to move into another position at another company. But because of the way that we're programmed, perhaps you have people, and oftentimes it's those closest to you that'll say, well, maybe you should have just stayed where you were, because perhaps this job that you've moved to, it's still not, you're still feeling like, oh, maybe I moved too fast from the other place. Well, here's the thing. Whether it was a rash decision or whether it was a decision by intuition, it was an inspired action that you took. Either way, it was toward the higher vision. Either way, you were taking control of your life and saying, I am better than this. There's no room for me to grow here. There's a cap on my income here. And I know that there's something better for me. You made a decision. And the thing that you cannot do, and this can be applied, I'm just using the job because that's just an easy example, but this can be applied to anything, any decision that you make that you feel at the time is an action step toward the higher vision for you. You cannot allow guilt to come in and say, well, you should have stayed there. You should have persevered. You should have stayed there and just struggled through it. Which is why, and this is just a side note here, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on this, in this video at least, but this is one of the reasons why I feel so many people are bitter, exhausted, and sick, because they allowed other people to make them feel guilty about moving beyond a situation that was no longer serving them, that was not right for them anymore, that was no longer aligned in where they were going. But because of this idea of, I have to persevere through something that I don't like, that I can't stand, that's not giving me joy anymore, where I'm not growing, but I have to persevere through this to show that I'm strong, to show that I'm a strong individual and that I can get through anything to show that I'm worthy of what I desire, I am going to sit here and persevere through this. That's how people get sick. That's how people get pains that just came out of nowhere and weird places that they've never had pain before, and getting, stupid headaches and for no reason, and just these weird things that happen to people's bodies, and they're like, I don't know what's going on. Well, as they start talking, you start to realize, okay, you're just persevering for perseverance sake, not realizing that life can be you can live life in ease every day. If it's easy, look at it like this. If it's easy to think that every day is a struggle, every day is a fight for the next day, why can't it be the opposite of that? Why can't we look at life and say, well, life gets to be, I get to enjoy every day of my life. I get to do things that I'm passionate about. I get to spend my day fulfilled, in full. I get to live my life and be vibrant, because every single day that I wake up, I'm excited about what I get to do. Not what I have to do, not what seems practical or logical to other people. And the reason why, especially people that and people that are closest to you, because that's what they have done. That's where their consciousness is. That's how they grew up, and they never got beyond the whole idea of, well, you have to do a bunch of things that you don't want to do to get to a certain level. You have to struggle. You have to, or life is a struggle. We have to get out of that. We can't allow for that programming to cause us to just accept that life has to be a fight all the time, or that we have to insist on staying in relationships or marriages or jobs or businesses that we can't stand. That is not why we were put here. So, I wanted to drop that message, okay? Let me know if you have any comments, questions. Go back, if you haven't listened to the first video that I did about, I think I called it Escape the Loop. That's the most recent video. Go back and watch that one. And until next time, cheers.